It started with a sound, a low, rhythmic scraping, coming not from outside my home, but from deep within it, from underneath. I told myself it was the pipes, the foundation settling. Anything but the terrifying truth. But then I saw the fresh, unnatural crack snaking up my basement wall, and the single, muddy boot print on my clean floor, a floor that stood on a slab of concrete. There was no access under my house. At least there wasn't one that I had made. The chilling realization washed over me. I was not alone in my own home. Someone had been down there. The question was, who would do such a thing? And what were they hiding right beneath my feet? My name is Ben, and for 2 years, my wife Sarah and I thought we'd found our forever home in the quiet, tree-lined streets of Oak Ridge Estates. We were your typical young family, chasing our toddler and a golden retriever around a backyard we'd poured our savings into. The house was our sanctuary, a 1950s ranch with a solid slab foundation that we thought was as unmovable as the earth itself. The HOA, led by a stern, impeccably dressed man named Mr. Henderson, seemed like a minor nuisance at first. The monthly newsletters were a litany of petty rules, regulating mailbox styles, paint sheens, and the precise height of grass. We paid our dues on time, kept our lawn manicured, and avoided any trouble. We were model residents. But then the community enhancement projects began. Mr. Henderson proposed a massive new sewer and utility line to service, a planned clubhouse, a project he claimed would increase all our property values. The proposed path, a straight line directly through the backyards of 5 homes, including ours. At the meeting, I voiced my concern. That excavation runs right over our water main, and frankly, I'm not comfortable with heavy machinery digging that close to my foundation. Mr. Henderson's smile was thin and dismissive. The contractors are professionals, Ben. There's nothing to worry about. It's for the greater good. The vote passed, and a week later, the low, rhythmic scraping began in my basement. I told myself it was just the new pipes being installed. I was wrong. It was the sound of the first lie cracking open. The scraping didn't stop. It became the soundtrack to our lives, a low grating hum of anxiety that started every evening and sometimes went well past midnight. I'd go down to the basement with a flashlight, my heart pounding, staring at the hairline crack in the wall as it slowly, imperceptibly grew wider. I called the HOA's contracted construction company 6 times. Each time I was met with the same robotic reassurance. Sir, that's just standard ground settlement and the sound of our tunneling machine. It's perfectly safe. But nothing about this felt safe. The violation was visceral. I started finding other things. A fine slipped under my doormat for unapproved soil disruption in my own flower beds, which were just torn up by their machinery. Another for creating a hostile environment for community workers, after I'd politely asked the foreman to keep the noise down after 9 p.m. Mr. Henderson was weaponizing the HOA's bylaws, peppering me with frivolous violations to bury me in paperwork and silence my objections. My frustration curdled into a cold, hard determination. If they wouldn't listen, I would make them see. I bought a simple laser level. I set it up on a tripod in my basement, pointing the beam directly at the center of that growing crack. I took a photo. For the next 3 days, I took a picture every 12 hours. The result was undeniable. The laser dot, which had started centered, was now 2 inches off to the left. My house wasn't just settling. A section of the foundation was slowly, surely shifting. Armed with this evidence, I marched into the next HOA meeting, my hands trembling not with fear but with fury. I projected the time-lapse of the laser level onto the wall for everyone to see. "This is what perfectly safe looks like," I demanded, my voice echoing in the stunned silence. Mr. Henderson didn't flinch. He adjusted his tie, gave a condescending sigh, and presented a report from the construction company's independent engineer. The report stated in dense, confusing language that the soil composition was unexpectedly friable and some minor substrate shifting was occurring. But it posed no structural risk. He painted me as a hysterical homeowner, seeing conspiracies in the walls. My evidence was dismissed as amateur theatrics. The other board members, People I'd shared barbecues with avoided my gaze. I was isolated. At night, the humiliation burned, but it also forged a new resolve. If they were going to lie, I was going to find the truth. I remembered an old forgotten clause in the HOA, covenants about my right to audit. For any project exceeding $50,000, I filed the request immediately. The documents they provided were a maze of inflated costs and redacted line items, but buried in a receipt for new specialized geological surveying equipment. And I found a model number. A quick online search revealed the terrifying truth. It wasn't for surveying. It was a ground-penetrating radar unit, used to map voids and subterranean structures. They weren't just laying pipes. They were mapping something. My blood ran cold. The scraping, the shifting foundation, the lies. It all clicked into a horrifying new picture. They weren't digging near my house. The tunnel wasn't just for the utilities. The tunnel itself was the project, and it was directly under my home. But why? What could possibly be valuable enough to risk destroying my home to get to it? I had to know. And I knew there was only one way to get the proof that could finally stop them. I didn't wait for the next meeting. I called for a special session of the full HOA board and every resident who would listen. The room was packed, the air thick with tension. Mr. Henderson sat at the head table with a smirk of bored confidence. I didn't start with accusations. I started with a slideshow. I showed them the time-lapse of the shifting laser level. I showed them the fraudulent fines. Then I projected the receipt for the ground-penetrating radar. Why, I asked, my voice steady, does a sewer line project require a $15,000 device used to map underground caverns and voids? Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Henderson's smirk vanished. This is a waste of time, he snapped. You're not an engineer. No, I agreed, but I am a homeowner, and I have a right to know what's happening under the land I own. Then I played my final card. I queued up the audio recording on my phone. It was a conversation I'd captured with a former, disgruntled employee of the construction company. His voice, disguised but clear, filled the silent room. Henderson's orders. The tunnel wasn't just for utilities. The original land survey from the 40s showed a natural limestone cavern running under that lot. He planned to secretly expand it into a private wine cellar and storm shelter, directly accessible from his own property line. Your foundation was just collateral damage. The room erupted. The gasp was audible. Henderson shot to his feet, his face a mask of purple rage. That's illegal recording. Slander! In that moment of chaos, I delivered the final blow. I've already filed this evidence with the county, building inspector, and the state licensing board for engineers. I looked directly at Henderson, my years of frustration boiling over into a single icy sentence. You didn't just break the rules. Mr. Henderson, you dug a hole so deep you buried yourself in it. The look on his face, the sheer, panicked realization that his entire scheme was collapsing in front of everyone he had power over, was the moment of vindication I'd been fighting for. The king had been checkmated, and his entire board was now staring at him, not as a leader, but as a criminal. The gavel fell from his hand, clattering onto the table. The sound echoed like a cell door slamming shut. The fallout was swift and absolute, facing a mountain of evidence for fraud, misuse of funds, and illegal construction. Mr. Henderson was forced to resign in disgrace. The county condemned the tunnel, and the HOA's insurance was forced to pay for the extensive repairs to my foundation, a process that took months, but restored my home to its true, solid state. A new, transparent board was elected, and the first thing they did was repeal the Henderson Amendments that had given one man so much power. The phantom fines against me and others were wiped clean. The sense of relief in Oak Ridge Estates was palpable. It was like a fog of fear had finally lifted, but the impact went deeper than new bylaws or repaired concrete. It was about the principle. I learned that no one, not even an HOA board, is above the law. They rely on our compliance, on our fear of making a scene. My victory wasn't just about a hidden tunnel. It was about reclaiming the power that was always rightfully mine as a homeowner. So the next time you hear a strange sound in your own home, or receive an unfair fine, don't just dismiss it. Ask questions. Demand proof. Your property is your castle, and you have every right to defend it. Because sometimes the most powerful weapon against a bully isn't a sledgehammer. It's the truth and the courage to speak it.